I was a fireman up in the Bronx, engine 83, ladder 29. And I was working that day, and we had started doing committee work around 8:30. So when we clean up the firehouse and change the beds and sheets and do everything that has to be done. And I was doing stuff upstairs, and I happened to see that a plane hit the first tower. So I had said, as I was going around, I said, put the TVs on, watch the TV. It looks like a plane hit one of the World Trade Centers. And at that time, that was like a 8:45. And at that time, it just seemed like maybe it was a small plane, a crop plane, what else is going to be going into that? And then as everybody was watching, it was like right after 9, like I saw it was 9:03, and the second plane hit. And then we knew that there was, this was a lot more than just crop planes. So after the second plane hit, we were dispatched to go to the scene. So we got into the engine, to the rig, and I said to my officer, who was a covering guy, and I said, "Where are we going?" And he said, "Washington Street." So I said, "Okay, good." So I figured, I don't know where Washington Street is, but it has to be down past Canal. It has to be down by Houston Street. Let's just go down that way. So we started going down the FDR Drive. And around the 70s, I said to everybody, I said, "Where exactly are we going?" And they looked at the ticket, and the dispatch ticket, and it said that we were supposed to go to engine 35, ladder 14, which is on 125th Street and 3rd Avenue. Now we were on, it's right over the Tri-Bow Bridge. We're on 138th Street, and it would have been very quick for us to get there. So now the captain calls the dispatcher and says, "Listen, this is engine 83. We are in the 70s, and we were supposed to go, back to 125th. So the dispatcher, being that they were so overwhelmed with what was going on, he said, "Listen, I don't have time for this. You have to go to where you were supposed to go. It's called a staging area. You have to go to that staging area." So now I take the rig and we go over the divide, and now we're on the side of the FDR Drive, and we start turning around. So now we go on to First Avenue, which goes uptown, and it was jammed. So now we go up to 3rd Avenue, and which was easier. And I remember going down. Sorry. One of the things I remember, just as a thing, is people saying, "Oh, the fire's that way. You're going the wrong way. The fire's that way." So now we get up to 100. We get up to engine 35, and everybody gets off of the engine, and they go inside. Now there was 4 or 5 other engines parked there, and I go to I start, getting behind them. I'm the last one now. I didn't even finish making my U-turn to get behind them when everybody comes out, running out of the firehouse, because they were waiting for us. And there were people all over all the rigs. Everybody wanted to go down there. So now we go down, and we go up to the West Side Highway. And the West Side Highway at that time was closed, so we had a clear run all the way down there. So by the time I'm sorry. By the time we got down there, we took all our equipment and we were walking up to the, so on the way down there, I had said to the officer, the captain, I said, because we had heard that the first tower fell. I said, this is, even before that, I said to him, I said, you know, the world is going to change now. We're at war. You know, we're under attack. So the first tower had fallen. And so now we get down there and everybody gets off of the rig and they're with their equipment and their tools and everything. And they start walking towards the World Trade Center. And we were probably at maybe Vesey and on West when the second tower fell. And we had to, everybody was running back because we were getting all the clouds of dust and smoke and everything. So we went back as far as we had to go before it all settled down. And then we started going back to see what the situation was. And I remember that along the way, there was papers all over the place, but there was fires all over the place too, little fires, you know, like, so I remember going into, we passed a fire truck, and I went in and I got their fire extinguisher. And as we were walking, I would be putting out little fires because they were underneath these fire trucks that if it got bigger, they would explode. And there must have been a parking lot over somewhere by Vesey and West, but down by the water somewhere, because you could hear car alarms going off. You could hear tires popping. You could hear tires on fire. You could smell tires on fire. So there definitely was fires all over that way, but we weren't near that situation. So now we walked up to the World Trade Center, what was left of it, and there was a fire to our left. I think it was number 7 tower, and it was, at that time, it was a 5th alarm fire, which is, at that time, was one of the biggest fires that we'd ever gone to. And they were stretching a line up to this fire. Now, in the street, there was so much debris that you were actually, when you got to the top of it, you were probably like at the 4th or 5th floor. That's how much stuff was in the streets from the collapse. So we knew somebody that was stretching this line. So we were helping him, and we were putting it out, trying to put it out. But then it was just determined that it was too far gone. They couldn't, we weren't going to be able to put it out. So we went down and we started walking towards the World Trade Center, and there really was nothing there. Everybody was all over the place. There really was nothing to do. There was nothing left. And at that time, there was no cell service, and we had to go. We were going into a building to try to get to the other side. We were on that side. There were 2 sides. I don't know how to describe. One of, I guess, where that globe was. That was the north side, and I guess the other side was the south side. And everybody was going towards the south side. So we went into this building, and they were having a conference that morning, and it was all set up. There was all food and juice and cupcake, donuts and all stuff. But they had, working phones, and I was able to call my wife and my two kids, and I spoke to my wife, and I left messages with the other two, and at least that gave them peace of mind. So then we had gone on to, there was part of that building was a big, it was a gym. It was like one of these gyms. You see them now, but with the whole street, it was a huge gym. So we went through there, and somebody had broken the glass, so you could go through and then come out on the other side. We were by the Globe, and so everybody was on the other side in the staging area doing work and trying to do whatever could be done. You know, there really wasn't much to be done at that time, and but they were watching that building, number 7, and they were, I believe they were like reporters and I said, you know, but they had cameras and all that stuff, and they were taking pictures, and I said, you know, you should keep an eye on that building because something's gonna happen. It's definitely gonna collapse, and it did. Hours later, there was a massive collapse, but by that time, everybody had been out of there, and so we were there. I say we got there maybe at 10:30, and we were there until around midnight. You know, we were helping, searching, and they had found some. Mostly, they were finding some people, or they were finding. We found parts of bodies, and the captain that was working with us wasn't our regular captain. Our regular captain had been working down there in that area because he was helping to write up a test, a promotion test for captains. So he was down there. So eventually we hooked up with him, and the way that he had talked about his experiences was he had been with a bunch of people, and we found out later on, you know, it happened, I think, 3 times to him. He would go, they would be together, and they would separate. He went one way, they went the other, and they didn't survive. And so he was like in a little bit of a shell-shocked situation. So he hooked up with us, he stayed with us. And eventually he borrowed a turnout coat and helmet, I believe from the chauffeur of Engine 54. So we stayed there and did, you know, that one time that when they were finding people or body parts, they had set up a morgue, and they were taking these remains to the morgues for, I guess, later on to be identified. And, you know, one of the things that always sticks in my mind is before that day, if you had ever lost one of your tools, it was a big deal. It was a major deal. And I just remember all over the place, there were masks, there were tools, there was, you know, everything was, it was just a different world at that time. And one of the other things I remember is in our battalion, where we were up in the Bronx, there was Engine 41, Squad 41. And I saw them, and there were the 5 of them there, and you know, you would run into people that you knew and everything. And I found out later on that they were the second. They came in to look for the first people in their squad, and who all died that day. And they came in to search for them or search for anybody. But at the time when I met them, I thought it was they were working just like us, you know. And one of the other things which I didn't find out till later on, when somebody, because I didn't know who all the other companies were when we were up in the staging area. But if the highest award that the fire department has is the Gordon Bennett Medal for people who do miraculous things of life-saving and everything. And it was like I would be nominated for the Gordon Knitwood Award because of how I just assumed that we were going down, you know, the Houston Street or whatever. But as somebody who was part of that caravan when we went down there, had said that if it hadn't been for my mistake, there would have been 5 companies, and they had at least 6 people on each company, plus and there were people jumping on all over the place. We would have been there when before the second tower fell. So the only good thing that came out of that is maybe it saved some lives, you know. But we stayed there all day, and it finally got to a point where it was just too dark. There was nothing. You couldn't really see, you know. And we ran into a battalion chief who I went to high school with, actually, Kevin Butler. And he finally said, you know, guys, you know, we can't do anything here until they get lights and stuff like this. And so it's, you know, time to go. And so we went back, and we had our regular captain with us, and he had the turnout coat and the helmet from the chauffeur of 54 and 4. They're on like I don't know, 44th Street and 8th Avenue, something like. They're in the theater district. And so we went back there to turn that in. And I'll never forget going down and coming to the firehouse, and here were the wives and the family of these people from 54 and 4. And when they saw us coming, they thought it was their company, but it wasn't. And it was very sad. And while we were there, somebody called our firehouse to tell them we were on our way back. And we found out that a guy, Tommy Scholes, was they had a rotation program at that time. He was down the South Street Seaport 4 and 15, I think it is. And he was working. And he died. And they eventually found his body, I believe in January. And he was still wearing an Engine 83 2983 shirt. But and every September 11th, we because everybody has their own story, like you said, about September 11th. So you have to do whatever you have to do on September 11th, whatever you want to do, and what means a lot to you. And we have a breakfast at the firehouse, and then we have a mass across the street because the church is right across the street. And then we go to Tommy's grave. He's up in the Bronx in St. Raymond's. And then we do a lunch, go to lunch afterwards. But basically, that was my story of the day, of what I remembered. After that, then we went into a different type of a schedule. You would work one day, then you would be off, and people would, you'd go down to the site and help and look and see if there was, there were so many people that were missing, and that's it. I wound up getting cancer from the World Trade Center in 2011. I had colon cancer, and thank God they caught it early at stage 1. And I retired after that in 2011. And knock wood, I've been cancer-free. I'm luckier than some of the people that got a lot sicker than us. I remember Governor, I think her name is Whitman or whatever, from Jersey, telling everybody that, I think she was with the EPA, that, the air is safe to breathe and everything. And when we were down there was so much wind and dust and stuff. And that's how you could see how people got sick, because we didn't have anything. We didn't have masks. We didn't have things. And they had set up, there were professional people that came and set up, I think it's over, I don't know the name of the street. It's over by where Trump Towers used to be, or still is, there by the water, and doing eye washes. And because everybody was so irritated from all the dust and the debris that was just whipping around. It was very, very windy, and for that we were very grateful. I guess nobody knew what they were going to get into, and nobody knew the damages of what it was going to happen down the road. But I don't know what else to say. Hopefully you could edit out all this crying.
No, I don't think we want to. I mean, this is...
And, we were lucky, but, and a lot of people weren't, and of all the people that, like everybody, it's amazing. Before September 11th, we were out in California, my wife and I, and we were getting into an elevator. There was a couple, and I said, "Oh, where are you from?" And they said, "Oh, we're from San Francisco." And this was right after the earthquakes. And I said, "Were you affected?" And I could see she grabbed his hand, like for support. And I said to them, "It seems like you were, and we're very sorry for whatever your loss was, and that that, everybody's trying to help and praying and everything like that." And then everybody, we went our ways. And that always happens when when people find out you're a fireman, and like, "Oh, were you there on September 11th?" And normally, like if we're with a group of people, especially if they're firemen, I tend to stay to the back because, you know, I don't want to, it gets just too much, it's too emotional. And even my wife says that, and we did the same thing, if people say it, she'll know to grab my hand for support, because so did my wife and my family and all the wives and families and husbands, and because without them, we wouldn't have gotten through what we had to go through, you know. And when you look at all the names, there was 343 firemen. You know, I could say I knew personally knew about 50 of them, and it's just, you know, it's sad. And one of the other things is my brother and I, both of my brothers were firemen also, and you'll always see signs, you know. You look at the clock and it's 3:43, or you look at the clock and it's 9:11, or I find dimes. One of my brothers has died, and two of my brothers have died, but my other brother and I, I'll find dimes, and that's supposed to be a sign from somebody who's, you know, thinking of you or whatever, you know, just a superstitious, probably an Irish superstitious thing. But and because there is a, what is the name of the book? It's called, oh, I can't remember. Is that Angels or how come you know, it's called, oh, I wish I could have remembered. Wings of Angels, or Angels, where it's like nothing's by coincidence. You know, it's like it has a purpose, you know. And this guy, he wrote a lot of books about it, about people's stories. So, and that's what I see when I look at, that's what I think about when you look at the clock and it's 3:43 and or 9:11 or something, you know. So, and that's my story, I guess.
I've talked to so many people, anyone who was there, but especially the FDNY has to have post-traumatic stress. How does that show in your life, in your daily life, and what can you do about it?
Well, you know, I've been very busy. That was back in September 11th. So my daughter and son were older, both either in college. One was in college. Both of them were in college, and then afterwards, I have 4 grandkids, and we we're a close family, and we are very involved. So it keeps it keeps you busy. You know, the days that it gets stressful is like around September 11th, and because I don't say 9/11, I always say September 11th. And one of the things I always liked, because I would go to the firehouse on that morning, was you would listen to the radio, and there used to be Scott and Todd, and they always had, it was always a tribute to the fire. I mean, to that day, you know, all the lives that were lost. And it was good to be in the car by myself, and as they played songs and they talked, and you could just, I would just cry, you know, when I felt like it and whatever, and got it out of my system. they don't do they really don't do any things like that anymore, which is a shame. You know, they should spend that one day, and that's what it should be about. But back at the beginning, where as everything gets, everything gets pushed aside after a while, but it was good to sit in the car driving and just getting it out and crying and doing what you had to do, and then going to the firehouse and doing what I had to do there also. So like I said, we'll never forget. I was at school at that time. I had gone back to college. I wasted my youth not going to college, but as I got older, I was going back to college, and I have enough credits that for a degree, but nothing that'll get me a degree. So anyway, I was in school. So we stopped school. So now comes the second anniversary, and I had gone back to school. I started again, and I was in an art class because I had switched over. My major was going to be art. And after we did the whole, it was September 11th, and we were doing a September 11th memorial project, she had said. So after I did the firehouse, the breakfast and the church, and we went to the grave, I didn't go to lunch, and I went to school. And we had gotten into the class, and she said, today is the second anniversary of September 11th. She says, tell me what your thoughts are. She was saying to the whole class. So everybody was going through, and, there are kids, they're in their early 20s, if not even that old. And I always sit in the back, and the last person was me. And so I said, oh, my name is Mike. And she said, I can't hear you. Can you speak up? And I said, what I told you. I said, my name is Mike. I am a New York City fireman. And I was there on September 11th. And I just came from my firehouse and our breakfast and church and the gravesite, and I knew at least 50 people of the 343 that died. And plus I had my friend's brother, my friend who was a fireman, his brother worked for Cantor Fitzgerald, and he was above the planes, and he also died. They only found they found a shin bone of him years later, and it was like the kids, the people in the class, they were like, it was like you could hear a pin drop. Nobody that they knew was that close to anything of what happened that day. So hopefully it enlightened them to what it was all about, a little bit. So that's how I dealt with it, and I did a project, made the World Trade Center, and I put all sorts of rocks and words and stuff like that. And at that time, at the bottom, I put, "We will never forget." And it wasn't a slogan then, but it became a slogan later. And it was like canny that it was, that I put it there, and then then it became something that everybody said, we will never forget, we will never forget. But and I guess that's my story.
How has all of this changed the way you look at life and death?
Uh, you know, I lost my parents. I lost my mother when I was 13. My father died like in 98, I believe. I lost two of my brothers after after September 11th, and it's just um, it really it doesn't. You think about it, and it's going to happen. You know what, I had a grandson who was born when I was 50, and at that time, I started to realize I'm at 50, I'm on the downslide slope now. You know, so if I make it to 100, then I was halfway through, and I do a lot of preventive maintenance. I make sure I go to my doctors. I've had skin cancer on my face, on my arm. I go for I'm going for 2 tests next week for different things, and you just keep preventive maintenance. It's what it's all about. That's how they caught my cancer, my colon cancer, on my second colonoscopy. And it was stage 1. I was very lucky. So I'm very big in. We have a New York colorectal survivorship and support group, and I am the president. And I just try to tell people to take care of themselves, and it's going to happen. But hopefully, I don't dwell on it. We went away once with some people. We met them in Cancun. This was many, many years ago. And there were 2 cousins, 2 girls, Italian girls from Brooklyn. And they had just lost their grandmother. And she was 98. And they were besides themselves. They were crying. They were all, it was like unbelievable. And I said to my wife later on, I said, the only reason they were like that, and I don't mean to belittle the death of their grandmother, but that was the first person in their lives who had ever died. And she was 98, whereas we had, my mother was 13 when she died. I was 13 when my mother died. So we've always had, when my son was conceived, my grandmother died. When my daughter was conceived, my mother's sister died. And that was our family. The only one left was my father. And so it was just something that we've always dealt with, especially on my wife's side also. So it was used to it. It's not something to dwell on. I did a thing once where they said, "Oh, what are you doing today?" And I said, I took the kids to see my family. And they said, "Oh yeah, where'd you go?" I said, "Well, we went to Calvary Cemetery." And when we were kids, being Irish, my aunt and grandmother always took us to my mother's grave. And we have pictures of it there, and stuff. So it was like something to do. And the kids, they loved it. We didn't have a picnic, but they liked seeing their family, of what was left of what they hear about, so other than that, I don't dwell on it. With this pandemic sort of a thing, I see that I'm more anxious, because there's not that much to do, even though I have a lot to do in this house, that's for sure. But it gets you anxiety filled, which I try to, keep, deal with it, keep it to myself and deal with it. This too shall pass, so, I try to keep on thinking of, because I was thinking last night and today of what I wanted to say, and I hope I didn't forget anything along the way. I mean, but I'm glad to be part of your program. You know, let me watch my face.
I thank you. I know I really took you back to the darkest day of your life, and I apologize for doing that, but it's important that people know.
No, it was good.